Howdy, folks. So it is Lambda here with you again with a friend of mine that volunteered to help me do this very interesting episode of Lost in Lambdas today. I will let him introduce himself. Go on, Daniel.
Yeah, hi, I'm Daniel Glauser, and I've been working in the software industry for a couple of years and been focusing on Clojure for about the past decade. And when Lambda mentioned that she wanted to interview herself, I stepped up to volunteer because you don't need to interview yourself. Well, we've got a great community. Let's help each other.
Well, I really wanted to interview a woman because there are some topics that I really wanted to talk about. And, you know, I have a couple of close friends. Paula is a really close friend. I should hopefully be talking to my other friend May shortly, but you know, I think that a lot of women in the industry, well, there aren't a lot of us, and a lot of us have kind of kept our heads down, and that's how we've thrived in the industry, which is...
Ooh, that seems like something we should talk about.
That seems like something we should talk about. So,
yeah.
So here we are talking about it, I guess.
Great. So thanks for having me as a guest on your show, and I am more than happy to help however I can. This topics around women in technology and women's experience in the workplace. It's just a very important thing to go over, and we're not going to make progress until it's something we can talk about. And so let's chat.
Yeah. Thanks for talking about it with me, because as you said, these things need to be said. And I guess we're also mixing a little bit of AMA in here, where Ask Me Anything. People have inquired, oh, what's your story? How did you? And this seems a good way to just put it all out there. Oh, I realize that.
Well,
go on.
Yeah, you're not just a woman in tech. You're a person in technology. And so I think it would be good for your audience to get to know you a bit better as well.
And my hope really is that I can inspire others, because it can be really hard growing up. And a lot of us, you know, this archetype of the tech worker, cubicle life, never goes outside, you know, that this horrible stereotype of the person in tech is not helping our industry be the best it can be. And when we're the best we can be, when we can solve problems in all sorts of ways, and when a lot of us look alike and think alike and come from the same backgrounds, that doesn't help us solve problems in the best way we can.
Yeah. That is very much true. So are there certain types of problems that you found women tend to solve better or add to teams that men don't traditionally take view of? Well,
I actually have to say I haven't gotten a lot of opportunities to work with a lot of women in tech. You know, if you think about it statistically, I am the woman in tech on most of my teams. And of course, I've had, you know, product managers, project managers, you know, and they've been great. But I do think that the reason we tend to put women in tech in management positions is the reason why women are also wonderful developers, is we add so much more than just the technical thinking. You know, we're team players a lot of times. I can say that something that I feel like, you know, I work with a wonderful team. I love my team. It's very small. And a lot of my teammates have been doing Clojure for a decade now. And I can say a lot. So if it just comes to experience in writing code, a lot of times I kind of have the imposter syndrome going on with them, you know, because they're so good. They're so good. They've been doing this for so long. And, but I realize on my own team, I add so much more. You know, I really like to interact with the other members, the, you know, customer success part of our team that helps people use our product. I'm always reaching out and making tickets and typing too much and being silly and, you know, opening up stand up with, hi, how you guys? Just, I'm just so extra. And I know that, you know, I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. And you know, regardless of gender, anybody can add that to a team. But I do think that, you know, women in general, have some of those talents that, aren't as easy to quantify.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. One thing that I think about a lot when adding gender diversity to a team as an engineering manager is that, and this is a little stereotypical, it doesn't, different people fall into different buckets. But one thing I've noticed when I've had more women available on my teams is that they tend to guys jump in to try and solve the problem. Mm-hmm. And women more often ask, why are we solving the problem?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's just as it's actually more important, because if you solve the wrong problem, you didn't solve you missed, I guess.
Yeah. In decades of working in technology, I've seen really bad technology still work okay. Mm-hmm. But more often than not, failures have been solving the wrong problems, or problems that people didn't consider valuable. Mm-hmm. So by asking those questions, I think teammates add more value than just solving the technical problems.
Yeah.
Great. So could we talk a little about your background?
Yeah. So I come from air quotes, non-traditional tech background, and I'm also an advocate of diversity in gender, diversity in background, diversity in experience. And so that kind of ties into it. So I used to, for many years, I was not into tech. I was a fire performer at music festivals. And so for a while, I didn't even own a computer.
That's awesome.
And then I was at the time I was bartending in a microbrewery, and I was kind of thinking, all right, I was in my I guess mid-20s. All right, should figure something out. I don't want to be a bartender for life. I'd worked in lots of different industries that were very, very fun to do while young, but not all of them are conducive for, a long-term career that I wanted, and the lifestyle I wanted for myself. And so there was somebody that would come to my bar and work on their computer, kind of use and it wasn't a bar, it was more of a restaurant that happened to serve beer that we brewed. And this person would later become my partner, but he would sit on his laptop, and I saw the cool Zelda stickers, and I was like, hey, what you doing? All the cool stickers on the background. And he kind of started singing the siren song of programming to me, of, you don't have to go into tons of debt to get a degree to do it. That there wasn't as much of a, mostly, how do I say this? Generally, a programmer is a very liberal community. They're not going to care if you smoke a little pot. You're not going to get drug tested. A lot of industries are very, very tight on that, and that is less so in the tech industry. And at first I didn't believe. I'm like, yeah, okay. Oh, and you work from home. You don't have to go into office. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. But then I saw them, doing that day after day, and they had actually taken a contract from the bar restaurant I was working at. It's called Mexitali, by the way. It is in York, PA. It is an amazing, amazing, we call it the Mexitali Community Center. If you're in the area of York, Pennsylvania, you should stop by. But so Jay, my previous partner, he had said, yeah, I'll make a website. And he had tried to do it. He said, yeah, I'll make a website. And he was going to make this big, elaborate, bespoke thing in ClojureScript for this, restaurant that just wanted, the hours, the menu. Really what the requirements were, just like a static website. And
something that didn't require novel
no,
code.
But engineers, and so it came up to the deadline, and he didn't have anything done. And so I took on the contract, and I built them a WordPress site. I think oh man, I'll reveal this. I think I did most of it the night before. I did all the copy because I worked there. I was really able to get into it. And that was the first tech project I ever did. And I loved it. I loved creating something that people could use I loved even the silly things like writing the copy and getting the pictures and the designing and everything. And so then from there, I learned a little JavaScript to at least to prove to Jay that I was actually serious about. He figured if she could, consistently learn JavaScript for like 2 or 3 weeks, she's not just going to, pick it up and put it down, because that is a problem with people learning tech. And actually my first language really from there was ClojureScript. I took Eric Norman's courses on purely functional TV, and
Oh, Eric's a great guy. He's made some great content.
Oh, I love Normie. He really, really inspires me as a creator, and just so much. And I had the pleasure of meeting him at the conj, and hopefully maybe you'll hear this. Hi, Normie. We call him Normie, like as a affectionate nickname, because we love him in here, this household.
That's great.
So yeah, from there I studied, I learned, I self-taught for about 2 years. I kept taking little, I would make a website for your business if they needed it. Kept taking little jobs like that. And then I went to the conj, and I think that really provided so many opportunities through networking, meeting people, and really getting involved in the community. And shortly after that, I got my first job in the industry. It was for a company here in Charlottesville. So I picked up, I moved. It was by myself. I didn't know anybody here. I interviewed on a Thursday, went back home, grabbed my stuff, and I was back in Charlottesville on Tuesday signing a lease. So that's how quickly.
Wow. So that was fast.
Very fast.
Can you dive more into your experience at the conj and how you either felt supported or didn't by the Clojure community?
Well, I love our community. I know I had been involved in the Slack, the Clojurian Slack. Always a lurker, always a question asker. Before then, but it was so great too. So what I did is I got this hammock in the Clojure colors. I specifically got it in the Clojure colors. And
are hammocks the thing in the Clojure community?
I guess I get his background. So Rich Hickey has a really wonderful talk where he talks about hammock driven development. And, so many people are, I want to say fanboys, but that's very gendered. It's a very gendered term. So many of us are fans of Rich Hickey and his talks, and it's super influential to a lot of us. So I got a Clojure colored hammock, and as a mechanism of introduction, because I'm very extroverted, obviously, I went around and had all the greats in my head sign it. And it was just a really great way to walk up to, Rich Hickey. When else are you going to walk up? Like, that's hard to do. You just walk up to Rich Hickey and be like, hi. But instead, it was so much worse. Instead, I ran up to him like a K-pop fan girl and was like, oh my God, will you sign my hammock? And he just you could see the horror in his eyes for a split second. He's like, oh no, what have I done? And, it was at the game night that I ran up to him. And he had also just finished a, very long game. And I think he was just like, nothing like that had ever happened to him before, I don't think, but,
that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And so you went to the conj, you went around, you met some of the better known folks in the industry. Mm-hmm. Did meeting with them help inspire you to keep going with the language, or did other conversations or meetings help or happen? Don't need to go too deep in this, but I'm just curious about your experience there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about it so I can thoughtfully answer the question. And it's funny when you say the influential people. Like, I consider Andy Fingerhut another great. It's not just the Cognitect crowd. There are so many members of the community. Sean Corfield, that's somebody who was so great to meet in person, and so wonderful that there's so many different types of people, because to do Clojure, I feel like it draws a certain crowd that isn't just in it for the money, or I have friends of mine that went to undergrad that kind of follow that traditional path, that are in these jobs that they just hate. They've been programming now for 10 years. They've been doing Java because they learned it in like high school, and or databases or something like that, SQL or Java or C or something. They've just been doing it for so long, and they wake up and they just really, it's a clock in, clock out. They do not like their job, and that is just so amazing to me. I'm like, well, then change what you do. And I feel like Clojure has captured the people that you realize that you can just change what you do and make it fun for yourself. Programming should be fun. It's solving problems. It's basically a glorified video game. It should be. If you don't like what you're doing, do something else.
Yeah, and that can be easy or hard depending on the person, the circumstances. I try not, as a manager, I try not to necessarily judge about that. But I think you hit on a really good point that what I've found is folks generally self-select into the Clojure community. Most folks aren't forced to work with Clojure. They've got choices. They don't have to. They can sometimes if it's available, if there's the opportunity there. And consequently, it seems like there's more happy people or people happy with what they do, I should say, in this community.
Yeah, I was speaking with a coworker who has a lot of experience in a lot of different languages, and if you're listening to this, hi Abik. I call him the coder paladin, because he's always for the good of the code. Let me tell you, this guy will eviscerate you in a code review. That's what I mean. Just really, and I used to take it personally, but, then I realized that he really is just concerned with writing good code. And in conversations with him, because in general, I like to say that I'm a best tool for the job type of gal. When it comes to IDEs and languages, and even though I'm kind of a Clojure zealot, it's not always the best tool for the job as much as I want it to be. But what we were talking about, really, the best tool for the job is a thing that makes your developers want to code for, that gets your devs invested. When your devs enjoy what they're doing and enjoy, using the tools and the languages, they're going to write better code. And so that's where I feel like Clojure and ClojureScript, because you can do a direct comparison of, all the reasons why it's easier to do, especially with ClojureScript and JavaScript. I get it, that ClojureScript also has, JavaScript also has, you can do functional there. A lot of people are like, why would you ever? And I'm like, but have you written ClojureScript though? The process is delightful once you get it started. So yeah, I think that's a really important part of, what draws people to Clojure, what keeps people in Clojure is, the products that we're writing as developers kind of come and go. But if you can be delighted and look forward to work because of the tools that you're using, make you feel that way, that is such an advantage to have. You're a manager. How is it working with the team that hates the tools they're using versus the team that loves the tools they're using? Have you seen that?
Oh, it's a marketed difference to the point where I've tried just for fun, coining the term fun-driven development. Instead of test, instead of anything else, focus on people enjoying what they do because they're just going to get more done. And they're going to write better software. I've worked on numerous teams where we tried to capture, and there's all sorts of challenges around the Heisenberg uncertainty principle around capturing a happiness metric. But if you can start to get a feel for whether the team is happy or not, I find that has a larger end effect on whether the team is getting things done or not. Is their degree of happiness. So by providing teams with tools that they want to use that make their day-to-day enjoyable, I hear you. It's great. And it's part of why I've been working in the Clojure community or in Clojure for the past decade or so is there are other languages that do cool things, but I just have more fun. because I can get things done more efficiently, because of the REPL-driven workflow, because I feel the tools get out of my way and I can just focus on the domain, all of those reasons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's another reason why, kind of circling back to what we were talking about, why having diversity in gender and color and, background also adds to a team, because, a lot of people with, devs kind of get a reputation for being very introverted, lone wolf, but humans, we're social animals. So even if you're grumpy during stand up, hopefully if I could just put a smile on somebody's grumpy face at least once during a meeting, that's awesome. And I think that, just regardless of gender, having people like that on your team, that not only the tools are fun, but your team is fun. You enjoy the people you work with. That's also just so important.
Yeah, that's one notion of diversity that I pay attention to as a manager, around introvert versus extrovert diversity on the team as well. Mm-hmm. Just for a lot of the reasons you said, if folks are extroverts can provide a lot of value in generally keeping it fun. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of nuance around that I won't dive into, but I'm glad you're paying attention to that. Mm-hmm. and that you see that as a valuable thing. I couldn't agree with you more. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's see. So you've been working how long have you been working in the industry?
You know what? It's only been a couple years officially. So it was the last conch. So, but that was before COVID. So that was a couple years ago, because I went to the conch in November, and then I began working, in an official capacity. My first big girl closure script job that wasn't just kind of freelancing. January. Actually, I think it was January 2019. Right before COVID. I was here for a month, and then the world ended. So that was really great.
All right. So let me ask some of the more challenging questions.
Let's get into
here. All right. In those 2 years, mm-hmm. Do you feel that, your appearance matters or has an effect on how you're perceived in the job, in the workplace?
Yeah. And that's a great question. And that's something that's actually kind of, important to me. I enjoy having a fun appearance, and, I do feel like that is a luxury, a privilege that I have now, kind of having established myself in the community a little more. And I feel that's something that the Cognitect sponsorship has done for me, is really given me the confidence to be able to express myself more freely, because it's like, hey, look, Cognitect's, Cognitect thinks I'm something. So, but I think it's important that we get away from this notion that your appearance has anything to do with your ability to code and solve problems. And because I think personally, some of the best people are I shouldn't say best people, but when you're more creative, you tend to be more expressive. And when you're more creative, you're able to solve problems in a different way, going back to that diversity of thought thing. And
different points of view.
Exactly. And I think it is really, I am a millennial, and I think that my generation and generation, is it Z, the one right, Z. Yeah. They get it, that tattoos and pink hair and all of that doesn't have to do with your competence as a person at all. And I think it's important to represent those that kind of look differently, look alternative, I suppose, because, I want to attract those people to my industry. I would like to see more people with different colored hair and fun tattoos and piercings and all of that, because, I see that as a positive indicator for creativity and abstract thinking and not fitting inside the box. And that's the kind of people I want thinking about our problems. That's the kind of diversity I'd like to see. And, the other thing is, going back to the problem we have with gender, I think the Stack Overflow, if I remember correctly, this industry is 92% male. And
well, what's the problem? Oh, yeah, that's kind of a big
yeah, right. And this kind of goes into a little bit some of my conflicting thoughts about social media and how, the hashtag Girls Who Code on Instagram, more so on social media platforms like Instagram, more so than Twitter. But I think it's important to inspire the younger generation to look up, because little girls look up at me and they're like, oh my gosh, I love your pink hair. They look at me like I'm a fairy. And then they learn that I do software, that I write code, and they think, oh my God, that's so cool. I want to be pretty with pink hair and write code too. And so suddenly it becomes an option for them in their brain, and they're more willing to take a computer science class in high school because they don't think it's just boring, stupid cubicle work. They're willing to do that. And, backing up to what I was saying about social media, I have some conflicting thoughts, because I'm very, very, I'm very pro sex work. I'm very, anti-slut shaming. I believe in, everybody's body is beautiful and it should be shared. However, I do see some posts sometimes on, like I said, Instagram, where, it's somebody. I saw one the other day. It was a woman who was naked and had a game controller covering her nipples, and it was like hashtagged all these programming hashtags, and it was like, coding is fun, and I was like, this has nothing to do with coding. And that, to me, I was like taking it too far, because it was just leveraging, knowing that 92% of the community is males, and males are going to like something. A majority of them are going to like something like that. And so part of me gets conflicted, because how is anybody ever supposed to take someone like me seriously if the only exposure they've ever had to females in the tech scene is naked, not coding with a controller,
Well, perhaps they should judge you more on your code.
That's true. Or just general value. But then there are lots of really amazing coding influencers that, do a lot for the community. And I think it's important for us to be on these platforms like Instagram, making kind of silly, what do they call, the duck lips faces, and giving top 10 tips about JavaScript, because again, we're capturing that younger generation to be like, oh, this doesn't look boring. Wow. She looks, this person looks attractive. And if that helps us get any young ladies, any young women into the industry, if we have to hack it through Instagram, fine. Let's, it shouldn't be mutually exclusive that you have to look like a librarian to code. That's not, I don't think that's fair. I don't know. But on the other hand, I also see people leveraging it in the wrong ways, and I feel so conflicted. And that's something I really wanted to share today, that, I don't think we know the answers either,
Yeah, that's great. It's a hard topic to bring up. It can be somewhat of a vulnerable topic to bring up, but I think it's good for us to talk about it. And it's almost like software architecture. I don't think of it in terms of right or wrong, but trade-offs. And in this case, you're playing the trade-offs game, and you're saying, well, you shouldn't look down on someone because they want to share their body or appearance. But you can take it a little too far, where folks might not take you as seriously. And there's a balance there. I think it's important to call that balance out. So from speaking to other women in tech, there seems to be this like narrow band where folks can operate, where where women especially are either perceived as too quiet or too aggressive. Can you talk about that at all, or have you had any challenges navigating that? And if so, how have you done it?
I don't know that aggressive is the word. And so can you elaborate a little bit? Do you mean in terms of the context of like conflict resolution? Are we talking about?
Sure. Let's jump straight into conflict. Like if you're in a meeting with a man and they're getting adamant, they're hitting the table, they're being aggressive in your face. Like, are you aggressive back? Are you not? Like, how would you handle that situation?
And I think that comes down a lot to your like coping mechanism as a individual, what you've learned, and thankfully I have never been in a situation where I've had somebody like that, where I've had to I've never been in a fight like that.
Okay.
But I have been in, I guess, places where I felt like I really wanted to, I felt like the other person was wrong and I was right. I'll put it that way. And I felt passionately about it. And you know what? I learned a lot from the situation, because in that particular situation, I was wrong. So it has helped me be a lot more humble and come from a place of, I think that we should all approach conflicts with a place of understanding that we're all still learning. And this particular thing, it was a reframe thing that had changed. The documentation had changed. It used to be one way. When I learned it, it was that way. And later on, they changed it and it was another way. And so, of course, I learned it, and the way that I was adamant about this. And
that's just part of the problem, mutable state, though, right?
Yeah. Oh God.
They mutated the documentation.
Yes, exactly. It was and it humbled me a lot to know that, to find out that it was a documentation snafu. But I think that we should all, regardless of gender, try to approach conflicts with a place of understanding, because there's never just two sides to the story. And you should take the experience of whoever you're, like, quote, fighting with, and try to benefit from it. That's really what we should try to be doing. Sometimes human, I guess, ego and emotion and whatnot can get in the way. But I think in conflicts, if we can all try to just let go of our ego and come from a place of understanding, then we could all emerge from it a lot wiser, a lot happier. But I know not everyone is able to do that, and it's hard to do that. But
yeah, that's great. As a hiring manager, I have morphed my hiring process to try and ferret out challenges with ego almost more than anything. So I take that very seriously as well. And I'm glad you do too, that you feel that it's important for us to learn. We have to put our egos in check to learn. And it doesn't mean you can't be passionate about something. It doesn't mean you can't have strong feelings about it. You should. That's great. That adds a lot of value. But at the same time, it's great when you can go, oops,
yeah.
I didn't quite get that right.
And sometimes it's like a pick your battle sort of thing. And because when we're talking about, design methods and architecture and some of these larger big picture stuff, I have my opinions. I have my preferences, but that's not everybody else's. And to separate myself from that and be like, all right, well, I can use it in my own personal projects. This is, like, I have a way that I like to do components that is, different than, I won't get super into it, but, when it comes to design principles, a lot of that comes down to opinion and how it should be done. But the best thing for the team is for everybody to agree on one thing. And even if that's not what you personally think is the best, pick your battles, because consistency among the code base, that's I think one of the most important things. And it's
Amen.
Yeah, I will stop it there. Consistency is really important. So
yeah, where I work right now, we have a notion of disagree and move on. You still need to continue, even if you don't necessarily agree, but come to a conclusion.
And it's hard too with remote teams and trying to find the balance between too many meetings and not enough meetings, especially when you're working asynchronously. Because when you're on a stand up every single day, retro once a week, sprint planning once a week, I've seen, and it's so an interesting thing for me to have been, living with a developer for the past 5 years, is I have the benefit of my experience, but I've also seen, I'm sure anybody at home that has a long-term partner and is in the industry, we all talk about work. We all see how a person's work life affects their personal life, when you.
Sure.
And, I've seen there's a meeting burnout when you try to do too many meetings and devs don't get to code. And that's no good. But then you can have too few meetings where then you're not fostering communication and everyone starts to separate and lone wolf. And that's also not good. So,
I'm really glad you bring that up and recognize it. I feel communication is a harder problem to solve than most technical problems in an organization. So
it's a case by case basis. It depends on the team.
Yeah. Can you talk about how you navigate that and add value as an extrovert?
Yeah. I think it's important to, be approachable from across the board, because if I kind of see myself as a conduit, if I can help my team by being a conduit of information, by leveraging my extroversion, then that's going to benefit everybody. And that's, like, as we were talking about, some of the ways of adding value that aren't quantifiable. When the customer success team, and I guess that would, for most people, be like post sales, when they feel comfortable coming to you, because a lot of times, because dev time is so highly valued, it kind of encourages the separation of anybody that's not a coder feels bad going to a coder and being like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for bothering you. And they feel this guilt and shame, and, being accessible and approachable is so important. To just be a better team and be a better company. So a lot of times I will like to, I'll attend some of the sales meetings just to keep my ears open and be accessible, be approachable, know what's coming down the line. When they do the dry run of demos, sometimes I'll just show up, notify just to be the first on call. If something's not going right, I can fix it real quick before the demo.
That's awesome.
I've learned a lot too from my CTO is probably the most approachable person on my team. And I think that is just so great. His name is Rob. Rob's great. And it's a lot of the C-suite in a lot of companies tend to be very unapproachable. And that isn't good for a team. But I always know.
So you feel, leadership can really set the tone, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And even things like, turning on your camera occasionally and asking how people are doing and reaching out, just little things that, people shouldn't feel, if there's a problem, people should feel like they can come to you first. As a leader, people should feel like they can come to you first. And then you're going to have a much higher chance of solving the problem before it kind of trickles and explodes. And there are so much can be solved just with communication, keeping those aisles open.
All right. Thank you for that. I'm going to shift gears a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
And
I'm here for you.
I'm going to ask a little bit of a trick question.
Oh, okay. Oh man.
Yeah. Throwing you curveballs here, huh? So do you have any advice to managers looking to help improve diversity on their team, specifically around gender diversity? Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, before you answer, here's the trick.
Yeah.
As a woman on a team, should you be the one answering that question?
Yeah. It's something else I struggle with, that all of these things I've shared about, I've trying to get women involved in tech and trying to get women trickling down to the Clojure community is especially tough. Because if it's like 92% for all programming, it's a lot less for Clojure. I can, as somebody who's tried to explore this, it's a lot less. Yeah. So, I think the first thing to do is that managers really need to take it upon themselves to become educated on why, if you're a hiring manager, you should understand it's not all just talent and skill with coding. And I would hope that most hiring managers would understand, kind of like you said, there's so many other things. You want to balance people's egos, their personalities, their communication background, all of that. And I would say hiring managers should probably start by educating themselves on, why they want to hire for more than just like raw skill. When I say raw skill, I mean there was a code challenge put out and, you got 10 answers. Let's say that 2 of them just didn't even complete the challenge. Take those 2 out. And of the 8 answers, say that you have a response and one of them is diverse in gender or color, or just, I'm just going to say, not like, one of them is not like the others. Maybe they didn't have the most, if it's an algorithm, the most performant, for example. Those are metrics that we can generally.
Sure.
But you really need to consider what that person would add to your team. That's not just numbers like that, because that's quantifiable. But all too often we really forget about those unquantifiable things. What was the trick part of the question? There was a trick part of the question.
If you should be answering a question or like helping managers to increase specifically the gender diversity on the team, because you are a woman. I've definitely spoken to other women in the industry who get frustrated with, why do I have to help solve our diversity challenges?
And I feel like because I have this platform, I'm doing what I can to try. I made this. I think I hopefully it's still up. I've made a couple of YouTube videos of how to become a programmer, but also a beauty tutorial where I'm like doing my makeup and talking about Git and like just front end, back end, like what you gotta know. And it is such a silly video. But it was like me just being like, all right, how do I draw them in? Like, how do I get women to and it's diversity in gender. It's also diversity in like personality too. People that are into things like beauty, that's not, and, I want to get a diversity of interests, I guess is the best way to say it. I've tried to do more female outreach, and the best thing I can figure that I can do is use my platform to try and be as much of a role model for women. And I do try to, mentor women, that are trying to kind of do what I did and self-teach. And, something that I realize that I struggle with is that because I have this untraditional background, and honestly, it worked out for me because of a million things, but some of it having to do with luck and privilege and just being in the right place at the right time with the right personality and the right skills. And, people ask me how to get into tech, and I feel a little guilty sometimes recommending what I did. Of course I want to recommend just dive into Clojure, go to a conference, meet some people, apply to some jobs, and you'll get it. But that I have a little brother who's learning programming, and he's also working at the same time. And even with him, this is my little brother, and I don't know what to recommend that he do as far as what to learn of JavaScript and Python and Clojure and ClojureScript, because he's interested in the Lisps, but I could almost feel somewhat a little irresponsible to try and get people to dive right in, because then if it's too hard, people stop, and then I lost the person from getting into the field completely. So if doing Python for a year and then moving on, if that helps them stay in the industry, then although it's getting so easy with VS Code and Calva and the things they're doing, I feel like Clojure, the bar for entry is getting pretty low in a good way. That it's a lot.
Yeah, it seems like there are a lot more jobs available in the Clojure industry, and that the industry Clojure does seem to be thriving in the programming industry. I don't see it ever taking on JavaScript or something like that. But it's a player. It's there. It's certainly not going away anytime soon. I think Cognitect has done, and many other shops have done a great job proving that out. That's great. And I understand that challenge that you're talking about between responsibility, bringing new coder in, and I see it again, like architecture, it's trade-offs. They're going to have less jobs available. Those jobs may generally be better. One could argue that point. But I do think overall the community has a lot of very smart people who are willing to work with others and help make them better. Not all the teams I've worked on are like that, but many of them are. So there's it's like a cost benefit analysis. Like, what do you, so that's a hard, but great for you for trying to get more people into the industry and to help mentor them there and show them an example of how you can. I think that's great. So circling back to that question though, whether you think a woman should have to answer the question around increasing the gender diversity on their team, around how to increase the gender diversity on their team. It sounds like that's a challenge you've just taken on and that you feel passionate about helping with it, so it's not an issue for you.
Because I want to work on better teams. I want to.
Yeah, that's great.
It's self-serving. Don't get me wrong. It's
all right. So question about you a little more personally. But where do you find the most joy in coding?
It's funny. I was with the guys at Deafin, and we were talking to Will Acton a couple weeks ago, Lilac Town, and I think I asked him a question along the lines of like, what do you consider yourself, a front end or a back end coder? Like what sparks you joy? And his answer really resonated with me of making a button that somebody can press. It just sparks so much joy. And I really I'm very creative, so I really enjoy things like design and aesthetics and creating environment. And you can see if you're on YouTube right now, you can see my room behind me, and I love engineering and design. And so front end just really tickles my pickle. That's a weird phrase to use, but see, here's the thing, is I also really like data manipulation. I really love just give me a big old sandbox of data and let me do things to it, which is why ClojureScript does so much for me. Just the perfect, I can transform data not mutate it, transform it and make it say and do what I want it to do, but then also hook that up to like a button and user input and designing, getting people's heads and designing the best user experience for them. Like, just, I go on other websites and I'm like, no, and I learn a lot. I've got a lot of books on UX and just, I love getting in people's heads and designing an environment and just all of that. And so, that's what makes me happy. I also am a very social person, so creating all this content also really drives me to learn, and become a better coder myself. When I each YouTube video I create, each podcast I do with the new guest, everything I do, that is that's learning driven development. That's how I find it's a little bit, I'm creating for the community, but it's also selfish because it's finding a way to motivate me to learn more and make myself a better developer and a better engineer and a better person, I guess, overall. And so, yeah, that's what makes me happy, I guess.
That's great. That's great. And again, back to the, not just solving the tech problems, but solving the people problem, the problems that real users are having. Mm-hmm. It's not just how do I most efficiently transform this data. Mm-hmm. It's how do I use the data to figure something mm-hmm. out. Mm-hmm. That's great. I really appreciate having folks like that on teams. Mm-hmm. Because it's often more important to ask why you're solving the problem mm-hmm. instead of how you solve the problem. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. I think that's about all the questions I have for you. Is there anything else you'd like to cover?
Oh man, I don't think so. It's been wonderful getting to know myself. That.
Well, you've been helping other people have a voice. It's important that you have a voice too. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so I'm glad to be able to help with the opportunity to get you that.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the Clojure community and how supportive of me they've been. I guess I will add something that I do see a lot of females in tech online. I see so many horror stories of what people are doing wrong in so many areas. And I don't think, I'm not saying Clojure is perfect, but I've just felt such overwhelming support from the community of me being able to be me. And that's just great. So good. So good. So I'd like to thank the members of the community for, being open-minded and accepting me and encouraging me. And I'm going to do my part to pay it forward and try and inspire and be a role model and, do the same for others. But I've just learned so much from interacting with a lot of members of the community. And I really appreciate what it's done for me as a person too, just in my daily life. So
that's great. It's a great thing that the community has been able to, you felt supported by the community mm-hmm. and now you're focusing on supporting. I guess that's how it's supposed to work, isn't it?
Yeah. I suppose so. That's the aim. Yeah.
All right. Well, Lambda, thanks for chatting with me today. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you've gotten this opportunity to have your voice heard more. Mm-hmm. And I look forward to listening to or watching your next podcast.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing all of you beautiful people, interacting with you and tweeting and memeing and just smile for me, everybody, please. Everyone, if you made it to the end of the podcast, give me a smile and make me feel good. All right, everybody. Good.